Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Varsha and today we're going to talk about everything primers. What are primers? What are their functions? What are the different kinds? How to apply? And the biggest question, are they absolutely necessary? We are going to answer all these questions in today's video. We're also going to talk about all the kinds of problems you run into while using primers. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. Here we are with a pretty bare face, and I thought let's just get into the basics of priming. Starting with what is a primer? What is a primer? A primer is a product that is used to prepare your skin before foundation application. It also forms as a barrier between your skincare and your makeup, or your skin and your makeup. What is the main function of a primer? Once you've gone in with all your skincare, whether that's an essence, serum, moisturizer, it is after that that you apply a primer. And what this does is it just forms a base between your foundation, no matter what finish it is, and your skincare. And that is ideally the main function of a primer. It creates a very ideal canvas-like, texture for the makeup to lie upon. And since it is this ideal, makeup does end up lasting for a longer amount of time on your face. I don't know how many of you guys actually know this, but primers were originally created for film and television, because powders looked really heavy and cakey, especially, when the camera zoomed in really close to the skin. So I feel like the specialists in the industry had to come up with a product that was blurring, that was diffusing, that made skin look almost perfect on camera. In terms of formulation, primers can be either silicone-based or water-based. Ideally, most brands prefer producing more silicone-based primers. I would say water-based is something that's come in off late. I would say maybe in the past 10 years, 15 years is when water-based primers have started entering the beauty industry. And boy, does it help people who have dry skin, someone like me. So let's prime our skin together. I have absolutely nothing on my face right now. I've been drinking a lot of water, and I feel that's why my skin's has been starting looking a little more glowier than usual. So proud of myself. Okay, I'm gonna start with an eye cream, and ideally I like to start with an eye cream because it gives enough time for the eye cream to sink into and plump up any fine lines that I have. There are primers for under your eyes as well, but this is something that I don't honestly prefer because I feel it's an additional step to makeup, and from what I know, this Bobbi Brown eye base is a very good eye cream plus eye primer. Another one that is similar is Ulla Henriksen primer, the Banana Bright eye cream. Sorry, not primer, the eye cream. I've used that, but I've never ended up buying it again because I feel like it does not really help with the claim that it reduces your dark circles. It really does not. As a person who has dark circles, but it forms as a great base. So I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that it only really moisturizes, hydrates, primes your under eyes and eyelids, just make it ready. I like to just tap this in and let it sink in. It does its job, and this is when I like to move into a moisturizer. Now when it comes to moisturizers, there are so many good moisturizers out there that have the properties of primers in them. For example, we have this one, the Embroily's. This has been a cult classic for all makeup needs. I love this. It just forms the perfect base for makeup. Just put a little bit on both the sides. Other moisturizers that kind of fall in the same hybrid option, I would say, the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream, very pricey, but it does really form a nice glowy base for your makeup to go on. You want to make sure that your moisturizer has properly sunken in before you actually go in with your primer application, and I'm going to talk a little more about this at the end of the video. Make sure you dedicate at least 5 minutes. 5 minutes minimum for your moisturizer to sink in. I'm not going to be applying any sunscreen in this video, but there are so many sunscreens that also form as a great base for makeup. One is the Unseen sunscreen actually. There's also the Dr. Barbara Sturm sunscreen. I'm going to keep a timer of 5 minutes for all this to sink in. And while I do that, I'm also going to talk about different kinds of primers that are there. I would say there are two kinds of families for primers. One is more skin type oriented and one is more like the additional benefit that it provides oriented, if that makes sense. To speak about skin type oriented, we have primers that are moisturizing, that are hydrating. Three of my favorites for dry skin have always been the Laura Mercier primer and these two. Now this is completely discontinued. The Marc Jacobs coconut primer was one that I could not stop using, and another favorite is the Milk Hydro Grip primer. These three work wonders for when I have really dry parched skin. There are oil controlling primers which help regulate the amount of oil that flows out through your skin, which is very normal. For oily skin, there is, I believe it's the Smashbox Photo Finish primer, which is actually great. MAC has a really nice oil controlling primer as well. Speaking about oily skin, I had once gone for a masterclass with a renowned makeup artist, and I remember he had actually used just a primer for the model who had really oily skin, and it was a very light hydrating primer, so he didn't go in with any sort of skincare underneath. And I feel like for people with oily skin, you can actually get away with this, but not people with dry skin. We need to hydrate underneath and then go in with our primers. And then there are moisturizers that just form as a really great base which can be used across any type of skin types, and I would say those are the more universal sort of kinds. One of the best universal sort of primer is this one by Dior. I know I have all minis, and that is because I usually don't use primers a lot because of the kind of moisturizers that I use, but this one is the one that Sephora was giving with points. It's really tiny, serves the purpose well because of the fact that I don't use it as much, but this I had used in a previous video. I'm gonna put the video here, but this primer is actually great across all skin types, so don't miss out on this one. It's really nice. We are almost up 5 minutes, and when you kind of touch your skin, you're supposed to feel only a little bit of tackiness or obviously fully absorbed. Now let's talk about primers and the additional benefits that they offer when it comes to their properties. There are primers that are great for hydration, color correction, blurring and pore perfecting, smoothing, and radiance primers. Now some great color correcting ones are, I know the Makeup Forever one, there is also one from Stila, and some great sort of blurring and smoothing primers are, there's this one from Professional which is amazing. There is the Smashbox primer which diffuses pores like nothing other. There are primers that have SPF in them. One of them is the Hourglass Whale primer. This Murad primer, which by the way I could have included in the oily skin primers, but this one is an oil control mattifying primer with SPF 15. Even the Hourglass is SPF 15. These are great primers if you live in a very sunny country and you wanted that extra protection. I also have the Tatcha Liquid Silk primer, which I feel is honestly brilliant. Two of my most favorite radiance primers, which honestly I don't use as much. Once again, discontinued. This is the Becca Backlight Priming Filter, and of course the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter. I know that Gala does a really nice primer as well, which I've never tried, but I did try it in store, so I know that it's really nice. So let's go into how we apply primers. Do you use a brush? Do you use a spatula? No, you just need your fingers for primer application. Since I have multiple sort of skin concerns, I try to use sometimes two different kinds of primers. I usually use a pore sort of diffusing primer right around here, like these two little triangles, and just I have a little bit of texture in this area. And for places where my makeup usually tends to fade, which is somewhere around my forehead and around my mouth, is where I like to use something that has a little more grip. And the next biggest question is, how much do I actually use? I'm just going to use this really teeny tiny Professional primer. I'm going to use this on one cheek. I'm going to use another one on another cheek. For one cheek, I would use, I would say 1/4 a pea size. You want to sort of dot it everywhere that you want to use it. And this tip I learned from my wedding makeup artist. You want to just push it downwards and only use that downward sort of stroke when it comes to applying your primer. You just want to lay it really nice and flat. Once you're done with it, just lightly pat over it. just to make sure there's nothing too sticky. One important thing is when you apply a foundation on top of this, you're not supposed to go, with big strokes and all. You can either use your beauty blend and just tap over it, or if you're going in with a brush, you use downward strokes to apply your foundation as well. Otherwise, the primer can move. It can lead to pilling. On this side, I'm going to use the Tatcha Liquid Silk Canvas. This is definitely a little more runny. And this, once again, I'm just applying and I'm going to kind of blend that downwards. This one, however, feels very hydrating and definitely a little more on the glowy side, if you can tell. As for the rest of my face, I usually like to use something that is hydrating, that has that grip, and I'm going to use the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer. This, again, you barely need anything. What I'm going to take is literally half a pump because I honestly don't think I need that much primer. So that's it. I'm just going to place here and around my mouth. I am going to avoid the place where I used the other primer just so that it does not pill. This, I literally just tap. You can almost instantly feel that grippy sensation, that tackiness, which actually helps makeup last really long on the skin. It's almost like the glue that holds your foundation intact. I would say never drag your skin while applying your primer. Once your primer is on, how long do you give your primer to set? I would say 5 minutes. It not only needs to kind of react with your skincare, it also needs its own time to kind of set, form that layer, almost form that base. For example, when you just take out a cake out of the oven, you don't usually just cut right and eat right into it, right? You give it some time to set. Similarly, all these products, all these textures need time to lay upon each other, and I would say 5 to 10 minutes is the maximum you should give for your primer to set really well and have like the perfect base ready for foundation application. Now I thought I'll at least start doing a little bit of the color correction that I usually do around my mouth. So what I like to do is just pat my finger and let's see how much of a difference does this make. When applied on top of that primer, there you can see how it almost very effortlessly just grips that color corrector and just makes the process so much more smoother to apply. It's like I'm not doing that extra work. Usually I don't use primers. However, when do you use primers? Is there a time? Is there a day? In my opinion, a primer is great for special events. If you're going to be photographed, if it is a life special event, your wedding, your graduation, just a birthday, honestly anything. But some people who can really benefit with primers are people who live in more hot and humid climates, as it does form as a base for your makeup to last longer. I would say avoid spots where you sweat excessively. So for example, for me, I sweat a lot on my upper lip. Let's move into foundation real quick. I'm just going to very lightly start tapping this all over. You can see how quickly this foundation is actually going on. And why tapping is because sometimes the friction of the bristles against primer would maybe, just maybe, make it peel. And you don't want that, right? You don't want all that hard work that you just put into your primer. You don't want that all peeling off. So that's why tapping is your best friend. And obviously, just to demonstrate, I'm going to use my beauty blender on my forehead right here to show you how the application looks like. It's again more tapping, no pulling, because you don't want to move all those beautiful layers. The primer just really helps glue all those layers together. Now I'm going to do the rest of my makeup and I'm going to be right back and we are going to talk about all the kinds of mistakes that you might run into when it comes to primer. And here we are back after applying all the makeup and I must tell you how smooth everything just went on. It was like spreading icing, like perfectly made icing on a cake. But what we are here for are problems that you may run into while you put your primer or something that might happen after. First con would be applying too much primer. Honestly, you don't need a lot of primer because like you saw how I demonstrated, you really just need a pea-sized amount of primer for all of your face. If you put too much primer, not only would it cake up a lot and become a really like a thick layer on your skin, which eventually might start running off, but it is also excessive and wasteful. Do one side of your face with a lot of primer, do one side of your face with less primer. See how it works. See if your makeup stays. If it does, well and good for you, you found what works out. But if not, using little at a time is the right way to go. Number 2, applying primer as soon as you finish your skincare. Now you saw how important it was for all your skincare layers to really set. Give it time to work with your skin, to soften up your skin. And once you feel all that is set is when you should go in and apply your primer. Not allowing enough time for your skincare to set beneath is again going to create issues like pilling. The third point is pilling. What is pilling? Pilling is when two textures of any two products don't match, and what happens is it eventually just becomes into tiny balls and it just rolls off your skin. What is the point? It is wasteful, it is excessive, it's not serving its purpose. It will actually also end up ruining your makeup. If you have a water-based and a silicone-based, stick to one. Today I used both. I used a silicone-based one across my cheeks and in areas that I had any kind of texture, and I used the more water-based one on my forehead and around my mouth. You could do something like that as long as both those formulas don't go over each other, because that is when things start pilling, and trust me, you wouldn't like the results. And finally, the last step, which I've frankly not heard a lot of people talk about, is removal. How do you effectively remove primers off the surface of your skin? If you continuously keep using the silicone-based primers, they actually build up in your pores, and guess what? They lead on to breakouts. Why would you want to do that to your skin? So I would say keep primer use to a minimal. Make sure every time you use it, you are double cleansing, because as you know, we do apply all that primer in a very pressing motion, so it does get really deep into your pores. An oil cleanser will loosen out all that primer that is kind of gone deeper into your pores, and your gel cleanser, or basically your normal cleanser that you usually use, will help remove everything, make it squeaky clean. But here's the thing, if you really do use silicone, more pore filling kind of primers, once a week do a nice deep pore cleansing mask, something like a nice peel off mask. I know the Boscia black one is amazing for stuff like this. It really helps get into the pores and get out all that gunk, so do that. I hope all these tips really helped you and helps you with your primer application, understanding textures, understanding formulations, and I hope you find the primer of your choice. But here's the biggest question. Do you really need a primer? And the answer is absolutely not. I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I have all these primers, but generally I don't even use them. It's not unless I have a special event that I actually go into my primers, but otherwise I'm fine without them. I'm not saying don't use one, I'm just saying use it if it's necessary and if it makes a big difference in your day-to-day life. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if this video helped you out. The comment section is a great place where you can start. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your primer questions or any questions in general. I'm going to see you next week. I hope you all stay happy and safe, and